Hey, Henry.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Jeff.
What's going on, Henry? What's up, Steve?
Good job.
Here we go. We're starting this conversation off with a little bit more about you, Steve. In this case, we want to know a little bit more about why you're doing this, and then also talk specifically about our mission here at the Learning Code. So I'll lead with the first question. Tell me a little bit more about why you're involved with this project, the Learning Code, Steve. Tell me a little bit more about how you think about this.
For me specifically, it's just, well, it's an accumulation of a lot of things, but recently in these last couple of years of my life, it's just from the pain of having to go to through education kind of alone and not necessarily with um, anyone like a solid foundation and team behind you. Not necessarily because it wasn't there, but you didn't even know about about the process of going through it, and that you needed someone to guide you because maybe you're so used to doing or going through education, taking care of everything on your own. But I mean, education, especially the higher levels, is a beast, and you'd be really at an advantage to have basically any advice and from anyone who's already gone through the process. So that's why for me, it's important to be involved with this, because if I could relay any of the information that I got, I know I could be saving a lot of people from the same suffering that I had to go through.
We'll take that next question, Henry, or I have another one lined up.
No, Steve, go ahead. So we've both joked about the fact that we failed so many courses before, we can't even count how many we failed. So maybe you want to speak a little bit about that and why that motivates you to pursue the Learning Code's mission.
I mean, just in the last 3 years, I counted it, right? It's like 8 classes. And for me, that was a big turning point because, I mean, I know I'm not the only one who fails classes. Like you said, you fail classes, and there's a lot of people. But I was lucky enough to have parents who are able to support me through my education. But I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity. Like after you fail a certain amount of times and say have lost a couple of years because of that, people are easily turned away and can't continue their education because of other life circumstances. So, I mean, I really had that privilege that I was able to stick through it. And so I kind of just want to take that luck out of the equation, as you always say, so that people can get through it, hopefully in their first try. I mean, setbacks are inevitable, but just helping people to get around these obstacles that are pretty much inevitable.
So I'll follow that up. I find that you're super humble and, just really focused on making the most of your education and sharing with your communities. It's one of the things that I really respect about you. And then the other thing that I really appreciate is just how strong you are, the grit that you have, and your ability to get back up after setbacks. And I think it's such a great thing that you can share that with others. I get personally a lot of inspiration from that. You're one of the strongest people that I've ever met in that way. To follow up with Henry's last question, we've been working on crafting our mission, and that is exactly what the last blog post was about. So I wrote this one, our mission at the Learning Code, and it's all about kind of the work that we're doing and the background of the problems that we're trying to solve. But specifically at the end of this, I presented these 6 themes, and I think I got you guys' approval before I posted this, right, on those 6 themes?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Steve, I was really hoping that you could tell me more about your thoughts about the first theme there, theme 1, which is to build and strengthen your learning team with effective help-seeking practices. So what does that mean to you, and how do you think about that in terms of serving students?
Well, for me, basically, I think just from my environment growing up, I always wanted to do things on my own. I think my parents try to push that notion of being independent, which is not necessarily a bad thing to have, but sometimes it can have its drawbacks if you're not willing to ask for help. And I've noticed that in education, like the more you ask for help, the more help you will receive. Like it's as simple as that concept seems. Like kind of blew my mind when I finally internalized that. And just being able to build a team around myself by asking those questions, like just communicating with staff, I was able to be, I guess change the narrative in my head. It's like, okay, a student against this higher education, where it's just like, okay, this staff is, they're actively trying to help me out. Sometimes they're not always actively trying to help me out, but like even against those the staff in those positions that are not necessarily there for me, like I have other people who can help me deal with that, and they can help me also become independent, where hopefully they don't need me to ask them for help to get through certain situations all the time. So yeah, just being able to have a learning team, like having some professors like you, Jeff, and having like people with so much experience like Henry through this education system, getting to know staff, the learning disability specialist, getting to know my professors like Parkley, and some outreach coordinators at Foothill, like Antoinette, and just learning, getting to know counseling and just meeting people in the STEM center. Like you really build a team and you realize like people want you to succeed and that you're not on your own, even though for some reason higher education makes you feel isolated, which is something that not only I feel, but I know a lot of other students in that position. So if I could just help other students realize that they're not alone and that there's people that want to see them succeed as well, like nothing would make me happier than that.
Thank you for your response, Steve. One of the first reasons I came to speak to you was because you stayed after class to speak to Jeff, and I hadn't built up the courage to be able to speak to Jeff yet, because it's hard to speak to professors always, forever and always. But because you did that, you literally modeled what that is like, and that ultimately ended up sparking my professional relationship with Jeff. So not only are you helping yourself, you are in turn breaking down the barriers of that power hierarchy. So keep that up. I cannot wait to read and watch all the media that you produce, along with the mission at the Learning Code. Okay.
For sharing.